Hello and welcome back for another episode of the Newbie Dentist Weekly Mentorship Series. I'm Dr. Omid Azami. In last week's episode, I covered the topic of you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And in that episode, I also talked about the concept that I learned in The Ego is the Enemy from a wrestling coach who said that in order to learn anything, it'd be good to have someone who you learn from, someone who's at your level who you can compete with and push each other to grow, and someone who you can teach to solidify your understanding. And in this week's episode, that is what I'm hoping to do. Recently, what I do is I usually listen to some audiobooks when I'm out running, and I find that a great way to multitask and gain information and gain new insights while I'm exercising, and I find that to be really productive for myself. And I recently listened to a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And this was an amazing book, and I'm hoping to kind of summarize that in this week's episode. One, just to solidify my understanding of it, and two, just to share that information with you guys because I personally found it really interesting. In Grit, Angela Duckworth, who is a psychologist, interviewed different successful people in different walks of life, from Navy SEALs to national spelling bee champions, professional athletes, and successful entrepreneurs. What she was trying to figure out is what it takes to be successful, and within any profession, why are some people more successful than others? What is it that determines that? Is it talent? Is it effort? Is it a combination of the two? And so she came up with these formulas, and essentially the saying is that talent counts once, effort counts twice. And the formula for this that she's come up with is that talent times effort equals skill. Skill times effort equals achievement. So in any profession, there's going to be some baseline talent and some effort to get to that point. We do well in school, we put in the work, we do well in our exams to get to dental school, get through dental school, to enter the profession because we have some baseline skill as dentists. It is that next equation, the skill times effort, that determines, that standard curve of the clinicians that are at the top end of it, the clinicians that are in the middle, and the clinicians who are at the, bottom third of the cohort of the specialty. And I think that's really fascinating because it shows that it not only is talent that's important, it is of course important to have some baseline level of competency and talent, which by the time you get to the profession, professional athletes in the NBA, for example, or dentists who've gone through years of schooling, exams, passed their board exams, and are now practicing clinicians, we have that baseline talent and we've put in the effort to obtain that skill of becoming a dentist. So the next question is that big one of skill times effort. So now that you're a dentist, how much effort are you going to put in to your profession to develop and become a better dentist? And is that what you actually value? Is that what you want long-term? Because there's no harm in or no shame in having, outside hobbies outside of your clinical work that you're perhaps more passionate about, and that's where you put your effort. The real thing that I'm hoping to get across in this is that having skill in something is not enough. It requires long-term effort. So that is the conclusion of it. She came up with the conclusion that this effort applied to skill, which she calls grit, is the biggest indicator of success in any line of work. So how do you develop grit? And Dr. Duckworth, who's a psychologist, has come up with 4 steps. The first step to developing grit is to develop a fascination. So in whatever it is that you're doing, it's really important to become fascinated, have good, deep questions, have some natural interest. Because when we're interested in a certain topic, when we're truly fascinated by a certain topic, the effort that we apply to learning about that topic is seemingly much less. The hurdle to cross, the barrier to cross to learn and continue to learn is much easier. For example, I'm really interested in basketball, and it's really easy for me to spend time listening to basketball podcasts, watching basketball games, reading about basketball stats. That's not effortful for me, and that's something that I'm fascinated about. So within dentistry, if you have those areas that you're fascinated with, then it's much easier to kind of continue to put some effort in to learn and grow. The second step to developing grit is to aim for daily improvements. And this goes hand in hand with what I've talked about previously in deliberate practice. And essentially, you have to compete with yourself, compete with your previous self. Look at what you were doing yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, and try and see if you're actually improving day to day. So find areas within your work, within dentistry, be it your patient rebooking rate based on case acceptance, be it the quality of your occlusal anatomy on your composite restorations, the tissue handling when you're doing surgical extractions, and try and just get incrementally better every day in those procedures. And you'll see over time when you look back on your work, especially if you're taking photographs and documenting like we talked about a few episodes ago, it becomes really obvious and really clear how much you've actually improved over the past little bit. So those daily incremental improvements may not seem like much on the day-to-day basis, but they do accumulate over time, and you'll really see the benefit of that. The third thing is to develop a greater purpose. And this is a tricky one because it requires a lot of reflection and a bit of like abstract thought, really, to have a greater purpose for the work that you're doing. The example that Dr. Duckworth uses in the book is a bricklayer building a church. So the bricklayer can think to himself that, I'm just putting up a wall, or they can think to themselves that I'm helping contribute to build a church for people to come and pray. So they've associated their work with a higher purpose, and that's something that really elevates their effort and helps them push through the boundaries and the friction to get to where they want to get to. So within what you're doing, be it in dentistry or within the projects that you're doing outside of dentistry or your family life, try and see what the higher purpose of that is. And that'll really motivate you to push through the boundaries and the friction that stands between you and getting the achievement that you want. And finally, the fourth step to developing grit is to adopt a growth mindset. And this one is huge and applies to everything beyond grit, I would say as well, because if you don't have a growth mindset, and what a growth mindset is that you have the belief that with effort and study and practice, you can actually improve, that you're not set in who you are and what you are and your abilities are. So that would be something that I encourage everyone to have, because it's really important. If you're not having a growth mindset, if you don't believe you can actually get better and improve, then what's the point of putting in effort? And a lot of people actually do think like that, unfortunately. And that's why that standard curve exists within any profession, be it professional sports, be it within dentistry, or within society at large. So it's really important for the people who do achieve great things, who become successful, who reach their goals. They are people that develop a fascination in what they're doing. They aim for daily improvements. They develop and find a greater purpose in what they're doing, and that helps motivate and push them. And they also have a growth mindset, which makes them believe that they can actually get better and achieve these results. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode on grit and what it takes to become successful. It's really important to define your own definition of success, to look inward and reflect on why it is you want to achieve what you want to achieve. And then to understand these formulas, that talent counts once, effort counts twice. We've all been through and have a baseline of talent, and we've put in that effort to become dentists. Now we have that skill. We're all dentists and we have the license and we can do what we're doing. It's that next step that is for the people who want to do a little bit better, who want to grow, is skill times effort. And that comes with grit, and that comes with the 4 things that I talked about. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And check out the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, one of my recent favorites. And if you're like me and are quite impatient or are quite busy with juggling a lot of things on the go, consider audiobooks. I find them to be a great medium to take in information and to learn while I'm multitasking and doing other things. I'll talk to you guys next week. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Newbie Dentist Podcast. Please be sure to subscribe and head over to iTunes and give the show a 5-star rating. For all show notes and to access all previous episodes, head over to www.newbiedentist.com. Have a great day.